Oh, Jesus. I'm nervous. Y'all look great in your underwear, by the way. As you've heard, I'm an artist. This is me in my studio. It's also my living room, by the way. Since 2002, I've been painting, but I can do so much more than just paint. Not only do I make art, but I invent and build custom assistive devices to aid in reducing effort and pain for myself. My most useful invention is this thing. It's called a maul rail. A maul stick is what artists use to when their painting's wet and they have to do the detail, and so they have a stick and then they rest their arm. And usually I bring this with, but I made it to attach to the back of the canvases. And then I have a PVC pipe that goes on, because it's a rail of screws, and then I can lean on it to do all the detail work. I have, since I've made that, sort of stopped using it. I've been able to paint sort of freehand a lot better now that I'm more used to it. All this stuff is built in my art lab. It's the second bedroom, so it's basically a shop. I love working in the shop probably more than painting. I wish I could do it more, but I'm in an apartment, so you're limited, obviously. Like Heather, I'm in love with the beauty that I see in the world, but it's not enough for me to just see it. I have to explain it, replicate it, or magnify it. In 2014, I had a show called Syndrome Psychology. This is one of the flyer that I made for it. It depicts the struggle I go through, both physically and psychologically. It's hard to say which inspired which, but I've also made a featured documentary about me and my life with one of my best friends, Nathan Meir. And it's called Logan's Syndrome. Its world premiere is at the Carmel International Film Festival in October, in about 2 weeks. So it's about to get real in my life. This is going a lot, worldwide, or going out of this room anyway. So how's all this possible? As far as regular income, I get SSDI, which pays for all of my living expenses, and then Section 8 housing pays the majority of my rent. This continues to be a really great source of shame for me, but I focus on the other ways I contribute to society, like this and making art, and we'll see what else I can do. I have tried many jobs over the years. My first one was at Mom's Salon, folding towels. And then I worked at Hogle Zoo, which was awful. Call centers, office jobs like filing. My last job was probably over 10 years now, I believe. It was just data entry, and I actually liked it, and it lasted for about 1.5 years, the longest that I ever had. But it's been a long time without a job, which is great. I'm not gonna lie, it's great to not have to work. But there's obviously a price that I pay for that luxury. The most difficult aspects about daily living for me are the following. I have no wrist movement. I think that's the biggest issue, is not having a wrist. So everything that I do, or everything that you would use your wrist to do, I use my elbow to do. And so that means if there's a glass on the table, I have to bend down to get it, and usually use the other hand to push it into my hand to hold it, and then depending on the drink, I have to use both hands, which I've tried not to do in my life. I'll explain it a little bit in a minute. As Heather said, we do hunch for everything because our legs are so long. So it's having to tweak my body in that way. And I'm only 37, but I really feel like I'm like in a 60-year-old body. My hands are small. The fingers don't straighten out, as you see. That's about as straight as they can get. And so that leaves, and that's by forcing it. And so getting to my pockets are not really that easy. There's a lot of fidgeting around. I used to tell a story that I worried about being in line, like to get coffee, and I'm fidgeting and I'm worried they think I'm doing something else while I'm in line. But now I just, use credit cards, so I don't have to deal with change and dealing with that. Everything is hard and everything causes pain. Vacuuming, working on the computer is really painful. Groceries, of course, putting away groceries, making dinner, eating dinner, washing anything in the world, dishes, counters, windows, anything. I'd like to be able to, at some point, do an example. I haven't really thought of one to do for this talk, to show you physically how I do something. I think that's important for you to see. Socially, the most obvious struggle is I look different, weird. Everyone stares, even animals. Just kidding. And all right, so the hearing impairment is a big issue. When in a noisy environment, I can't understand what's being said. Having to say what for me is mortifying. Just to have to say it once is mortifying because I have such bad anxiety. I made this painting and it's somewhat still relevant. I did get a new hearing aid in the right side that I hadn't had throughout my whole life. I got it about 1.5 years ago. And so that has really changed things socially for me, or in a room like this, or in a crowd like this. Plus, we have to tape them to our heads since we don't have the tips of our ears, and so they wouldn't stay on. They would just be hanging down. And so if you get hot and you sweat too much, then they come off and unstick. And then the batteries, you have to make sure that you have batteries, because they die within like 2 minutes of the first beep that goes off. And so it's a problem. It's a pain. I avoid talking on the telephone, but I know that that's also the autism, which I'll talk about a little bit. The lung disease, the primary ciliary dyskinesia, this is probably the most insidious of all of my challenges. It's hard to breathe, which keeps my mortality front and center. I made this painting to sort of illustrate this. Since preschool, I began constructing a bubble of deniability. I became hyper-focused on watching how quote-unquote normal people socially articulate themselves, the way that they walk, talk, move, and act, and became a social chameleon. The problem is that I convinced myself that I was blending in, that I truly believed that I was unaffected by any disabilities at all. At 18, I moved out of mom's house. I earned a 4-year scholarship to Westminster, but in the middle of the first semester, I had a sort of a psychological breakdown and quickly dropped out, had some temp jobs, and then ended up getting my associate's degree in graphic design at a trade school that doesn't exist anymore, by the way. But I was drinking a lot, and marijuana entered the fray. I had a couple of design jobs, but it didn't last. I quickly spiraled down to rock bottom, and I wanted to commit suicide. I never have tried, thank God, but it's always there in the back of my mind. In desperation, I sold everything that I owned and moved to Palm Springs. And for 3 months, I was doing hard labor for my uncle's landscaping business, shoveling gravel, planting trees and flowers, installing sprinklers, and making waterfalls. What the hell was I thinking? It was crazy. Eventually, I found a whole new bottom there, but that's not all I found. This was a painting that I painted. One of the things that I didn't sell was a big canvas and some primary color acrylic paint. But in high school, I was really into modern art, more about the composition and lines and colors than actually painting something real. And so I really didn't know I had an ability, paint-wise, to paint something. I knew I could draw. I've been drawing since I was 2 years old, so I can do that, but I didn't realize I could paint. And once I painted this, I was like, I couldn't believe it, that I painted it. And I saw my future there. And that's where it began, was at the bottom. My purpose has been there all along. I found my love, and I was going to take full advantage. So I moved back to Salt Lake. My car got stolen in Palm Springs, and so I used the insurance money to move back to Salt Lake, so it kind of worked out in a way. I decided I wanted to do a floral series. This was the first flower that I did. Shortly following this epiphany, I was diagnosed with ADHD and a mood disorder which includes depression. Then I moved into my own apartment again, got a job doing the data entry, like I said. And I was still painting, but not a lot, just in spurts. 9 months later, I was still working and enjoying friendships at work, but I was taking Ritalin and not taking it at the right times. And so I was going to bed once I lost that job, which was shortly within this time frame, I was taking Ritalin a lot more than I was supposed to. So I was going to bed at like 6 in the morning and waking up at 3 in the afternoon. And I did that for a long time, maybe a couple of years. We tried antidepressants, but they take 4 to 6 weeks to work. And then they have side effects, and then you have to take 4 to 6 weeks to stop that drug, 4 to 6 weeks more to do the new drug, wait for those side effects, and then do it all again and again. And I've done it, probably about 20 different times. So that took years to get. In 2004, I was arrested for a DUI. And then I lost that job, but wasn't related to that. I couldn't understand why life was just too hard, just daily life. It just didn't make sense to me. Then one day my bubble burst, and I realized that I'm disabled. Everything I do is hard because of these hands and these arms. And it was just clear as day now that was something you're not dealing with. And I was no longer capable of sustaining any sort of version of myself that resembled any of you. In 2005, I told my mom that I wanted to pursue an art career. So she and I went to vocational rehabilitation and formed what's called a PASS account. And the government helped me to start my art business. They also helped with customizing my car. I drive a stick, and so it's an extension on that, and then the extension on the steering wheel is like a big aluminum thing. Gotta make sure I remember. We have a sink on top of my sink so that I don't have to reach down so far to do dishes. then a bidet, which is lovely. I recommend a bidet. And then a few other things for the business, you know, a raising table and some art stuff. We made lots of prints and greeting cards, none of which I've brought today, of course. I keep forgetting every year, I forget. I have thousands of greeting cards in my apartment. And so we set up a business. It's a viable business. And so I sort of had it. It was my dream, but my mood was very unstable. And my relationship with Mom was almost completely destroyed. In 2006, I had my first solo exhibit downtown at Art Access. And it's called Nature's in the Details. So it's a floral series. And those are what all the prints and greeting cards are of. Let's see. The show is a huge success. They all sold except for one, but I just sold it about a month ago, so it's nice. I already mentioned going to sleep at sunrise. I was still doing that during that time. I finally went to a different doctor for a full psych evaluation, and they said that I have autism. And I'd like to say that diagnosis really affected me, like, to the core, and it sort of did, but to me it was just one more thing I couldn't handle, so it just sort of was a wash still. It didn't, I blocked it out until years later. Within a month or two, I had my wisdom teeth removed and hydrocodone was prescribed. And I had no idea I was in so much pain, my body, until it took it all away. And I put this here because I way overdid this painting because I was so high on hydrocodone. But I was feeling good and things, you know, it solved some things. But obviously I started going down that road that is so popular now, unfortunately. Primarily the back pain is the main pain. You know, sitting here the way I am right now is I don't really know how else to sit, but it's painful to sit this way, and it's painful to do this, but there's not really much else you can do. It is the way it is. And as I get older, all my joints, so sitting here, these joints underneath sort of feels like a bruise. When I sit this way too long, my circulation's getting cut off. If I'm standing, then it's ankle, knees, hips. Depending on what I do during the day, it's shoulder, neck, fingers. Every single part of the body, if I don't use it correctly, will be painful. And actually, to illustrate this was this painting. Eventually, I became addicted to Percocet. Shocker. In 2007, we had the autism spectrum disorder officially diagnosed up here at the U. Now, as part of a study, they did a test and they did MRI, and I still didn't believe it. It's eligible for the same program Heather's in, which is a neurobehavioral home program up here, where the physician, psychiatrist, and the counselor were all in one place, so they all communicated with each other. In 2008, I asked if they would put me in a hospital to get off of Percocet, and I did. And then we spent the next 6 years trying to find the right medications and in the right amounts until, with intense weekly therapy, I became balanced and fairly content with the way I lived my life. In 2012, I found a local group called Connect here in Salt Lake, and it is funded by the Utah Arts Alliance. And basically, it's a weekly or a monthly program where artists, any artist, amateur artists, can come in once a month bringing up to 2 pieces, or it used to be 3 pieces, but now it's just 2. And everybody that attends gets to vote on it, and then whoever gets the highest votes gets awkwardly pulled up to the front now, and you have to describe your painting and stuff. And so you have 5 people that are, the top 5, and then at the end of the year, whoever gets the top of accumulatively gets part of the grant money. And I won in 2013, and it was great. And there's also other stuff I was doing then. Well, after I realized this was something I was looking for as an artist, I decided to volunteer in 2013. So all throughout 2013, I went to meetings. I went to that meeting, and then I went to sort of real business meetings, and was really sort of an integral part in changing the program and implementing things that I believed were better for it. And so now it's, it went from like 6 people when I first went in 2012 to what you saw in the pictures, just a huge crowd of people. I also, I think I may have said that, offered the graphic design stuff. So I did flyers and stuff for the Urban Arts Festival. Let's see if I have that. Yeah, so that's one of the flyers for the Urban Arts Festival. Connect is held in that building on the left or the right side, and at the Connect Mall, or Gateway Mall. And so I was really, I'm like in there, I'm one of the, yeah, okay. Time, okay. Anyway, I barely got any personal reward for doing it, so I went back to being a hermit. But even worse than ever before, I began painting on the Syndrome Psychology show, and then begun really working on the documentary. And then I found an outline booklet of Heather's about autism. I was just cleaning one day, and she had outlined a book she read, and I took one of the tests in it, and I was just gobsmacked that I have autism. Like, holy crap, this is real. And this is the unseen force that I've been battling my whole life. It's real, and it has a description. And overwhelmed with a need for more information, I began meeting with Heather every Sunday, and I would read aloud, and we would record our conversations. So we have many hours of recording of Heather and me talking, and I'm hoping one day that can get funneled into a book or something. This was a painting of sort of my experience with autism. For me, it's confusing, but amazingly beautiful mess of virtually every facet of the human condition magnified. My mind is a universe full of introspective thought and extreme anxiety, fueled by constant hypercritical evaluation. And I am just beginning to learn how to harness it so that I can help highlight value in all of our lives. Luckily, though, I do have a secret weapon to aid in my fight. No, well, I mean, Mom, yes, of course. I can't get up. There's a painting on the floor of the dog.
Oh. Not me?
Sorry. So this is my painting of my baby. He's the center of my world. He truly is my guardian. He keeps me laughing all the time. This is a real picture of him. We walk at the park every day. He he's the reason why I don't go to sleep at sunrise and wake up in the afternoon. After creating art, watching TV is what I do more than anything else. You know, Heather likes to read to get her information. I watch TV, you know, Nova, Frontline, Independent Lens, CNN. And I don't watch like a zombie. I don't just sit there and watch it. I'm busy when I watch TV. I analyze every aspect of why, when, where, and how is the most interesting thing to me. How did they make what I'm watching? From the photography, design, video cuts, messaging, colors, commercials, target audience, and all the possible social implications it represents. It's exciting and completely terrifying to watch TV. And I don't tell anybody this, I don't tell anybody, but Project Runway is one of my guilty pleasures. Currently, I'm in between therapists, but I'm doing pretty well. The only drugs I take now are doctor advised. I've finally conditioned my body to paint at least 2 to 4 hours a day regularly. But believe me, if my eyes are open, I'm working. It's extremely hard, and I'm working my ass off trying to make life more bearable for me and everybody I know and come in contact with. So some of the works in progress, this is what I showed last year, and then the next slide is where they are now. You can see it's quite a difference, and I've been on them for years, they take years. Basically, I'm self-taught, so I really don't know what I'm doing. So I'm finally learning how to paint. I'm finally understanding color. So I think I'm getting there, and maybe it won't take years to paint these paintings, but it's still very difficult. I think I have a couple more. There's that picture of Mom mentioned, of Heather and me. I know I'm already succeeding by being here and being alive and not dying, but I want to grow into a better version of me. So I'm going to keep doing this and keep doing the art, and hopefully something will come of it. Thank you.